my GC was like, let's focus on like Google's AI and what we have here. And I just jumped into it and I spent a lot of my free time educating myself on AI. And I quickly learned, it's not difficult. A lot of these tools are very easy to use. They're fun to use. Like they brought out a sense of creativity. I've even told my CLO that I feel like it's made me more excited about my job. I have like a whole new set of tools, and I'm just finding creative ways to use them. And sometimes I feel like I just want to do AI all day and I don't want to do the other things.
I'm Hal Marcus.
And I'm Memme Onwudiwe.
And this is Meeting of the Minds, the legal AI podcast from Oversight.
We interview lawyers, professors, and legal operations pioneers that are pushing the envelope.
Leaders using technology to drive great business outcomes and shape the future of the profession. Memme, it is that time again. And this time we were talking to Brooks Hall, the head of legal operations for Human Interest. Now, you have a story about how you met her. I'm not sure if I believe it, so give me details and then I'll see if this thing is real.
Yeah, it's not your typical origin story for a relationship, but I actually met with Brooks in the metaverse. It was actually a few years back. Eversort, we actually have a headquarters in the metaverse in Decentraland if folks ever want to visit. And we hosted a legal operations event in the metaverse. It included a panel that I actually moderated with the head of legal operations from Meta, Coinbase, and Microsoft all speaking, and actually former guest, current president of Clock, and then head of legal operations at Netflix, Jen McCarran, actually performed live in the metaverse digitally with her band Ones. It was quite the event. But that's how I met Brooks. And, we've been close ever since.
All of this happened before I joined the company. Where's that stuff now? Come on. Doing back to office, and we're not doing back to office in the metaverse headquarters.
Amen. Not yet. We still getting the rebranding right.
All right. Well, we had a great conversation with Brooks. Brooks is with Human Interest. It's a company that provides affordable and accessible 401k retirement plans for small and medium-sized businesses. But she's got a range of experience at other companies as well that she talked about in the conversation. So without further ado.
Yeah, let's get the show on the road.
Brooks Hall, thanks so much for joining us here on Meeting of the Minds.
Thank you, Hal and Memme. I'm so excited to be here to talk about AI.
So full disclosure, we did an interview for our podcast with you late last year, and we couldn't believe how much time had passed since we did that interview. We had a lot of others in the queue, so we put those out. And then when we mentioned to you recently that we wanted to put your episode out there, you were like, well, a lot of time has passed. A lot has changed. There's so much more to talk about. And we were like, absolutely, that's great. We were intrigued to hear it. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about the latest. But first, let's take a moment. Let's introduce yourself to everyone and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to the role that you have at Human Interest.
So I'm the legal operations manager at Human Interest. I just celebrated my 3rd anniversary. Before Human Interest, I was at Dexcom in San Diego, California. And at Dexcom, I mostly managed all of the invoices for the IP department, which were probably hundreds of invoices a month. That was my main focus. And prior to that, I worked at various law firms, and I spent 7 years at Gilead Sciences, mostly as patent paralegal, sometimes trademark paralegal. So I moved into legal operations about 4 or 5 years ago. And as a paralegal, I was always looking for something else. I've got a million certifications. I'm almost done with my MBA. I've taken just all kinds of classes, and a friend happened to mention legal ops to me. And I went home and just dove in, joined Clock, and went through all the 12 core competencies and was focused on finding a legal operations role. And so that's what I've been doing here at Human Interest for 3 years is legal operations. We have about 8 attorneys on our team here, and our chief legal officer is also our chief people officer and also heads up our compliance. So I've also been able to do things with HR, help them, look at technology and some automate some of their processes and help the compliance team with marketing reviews and some software for their department as well. So I love it here because I get to do all these things, and there's really never a dull moment. We are a fintech startup, so every day is exciting. Every day I get to learn something new. I'm really never bored here, so I feel like it's just been a great experience.
That's so exciting. And, totally understand where you're coming from when it comes to your kind of hunger for learning more about legal ops. I remember when we first met each other at a legal operations event in the metaverse, right? Which is, if you're attending that, I'm sure you're attending so many different, kinds of events in the space. I'm curious because even when we did our previous interview, you are already so deep, not just in using the typical kind of contract management use cases of tracking renewals and looking at dashboards, but you were so deep into AI, actually enabling your teams to use conversational AI to talk to contracts, ask questions directly. I would love to hear a little bit about kind of how that's gone over the last year or so and just some learnings for maybe folks.
Yeah, I would say, we've now had Evisort 2 years. So it's been, yeah, exactly 2 years since we implemented it, and Ask AI, I believe we've been using it for about a year now, and at first, it was me using it and maybe the other, the commercial attorneys on our team. They're finding that when they use it, the answers have been very accurate, and so we've now decided to start rolling it out to other team members and just showing people how they can look at their contracts that they're responsible for. They can talk to their contracts using AI. They can ask questions, but they know that if something comes back unclear or they still have questions, they can always come to legal. But it's been a great resource for them for self-service. If they want to look at something 10 o'clock at night and we're all sleeping, then they can do that. So I think that's been one of the best things about it.
How do you even evaluate tools like this in a world where capabilities are shifting so much with artificial intelligence? Some of the things that you might love the most about our platform today, we maybe didn't even have 2 years ago. Could you talk about what it's like evaluating technology tools like this in this kind of environment?
It's overwhelming. A lot of people will say it's impossible to, to keep up with all of the changes. Things change hourly. I think another thing that we looked into was like redlining tools. Those are very popular right now. We did a trial for a couple of months on those. Decided it wasn't the best for us, but it helped us to understand that one of those types of tools that the playbooks are already built in that are based on the playbooks that the vendor provides, not necessarily our contracts, weren't like the best fit for us. So we're pivoting and we're trying to figure out how we can use Evisort, a tool we already have. There's just so many different tools out there, and you just want to try them all, and you get pulled in all these different directions. So, but sometimes you have what you need right in front of you. You could use what you already have to accomplish the same thing.
That's an interesting point because within our space, I mean, look, lawyers are always accused of being Luddites around technology, right? It's not been my experience overall, at least certainly not with AI. I think it's been some of the earliest use cases of AI. When people hear I've been working with AI on legal use cases for 12 years, they're all kind of like, 12 years? What are you talking about? It's only been around for two. And it's like, no, it's really not the case. But you're talking about how, they actually want to experiment with a lot of different things, but that can sometimes be problematic. You do kind of need, to work with what you have and try to have one cohesive set of tools. How has that played out for the attorneys in your team?
Yeah, it played out again. We spent the first 6 months of this year looking at legal specific chatbots, I'll call them. And we did 3 different trials. We spent, many hours playing around with these tools. And then at the end of this 4 months we spent doing this, our CLO was like, "You know what? Let's just take a look at Gemini. We have that tool." And so it took us down a rabbit hole where we just started using Gemini, and then it kind of snowballed from there once we saw all of the possibilities. And so that's just another example of a tool that we had already that we were able to leverage. So it's been a game changer for us, actually.
Yeah. That's exciting. I'm curious though about the lawyers themselves. Have you been seeing that they're energized about leveraging these tools? Do you think, I mean, everyone sees the writing on the wall when you look at lists of professions that can be affected by AI? Lawyers are always in the top five. What, from your perspective, has been the response from lawyers to these changes in adoption?
Yeah. Well, for me, as mentioned, I was on vacation, doom scrolling TikTok and and YouTube about, you always see a paralegal is always like on the top 5 jobs that's going to get eliminated according to the experts. So I'm like, okay, at least I'm not a paralegal anymore. But that's definitely was a concern for me. And I was even thinking, like, should I change my career? Should I have like a side hustle I should start? And I was very resistant to AI. I'm like, I don't feel like learning. I just mastered CLMs and all these, I've spent so much time trying to learn legal operations and now they're throwing AI. And I assumed, oh, it's going to be so difficult to learn too. Like not an engineer. I'm not ever going to be able to understand this. But I got over that and I'm like, I'm going to have a better mindset about this. I came back from my vacation and at the same time, my GC was like, let's focus on like, Google's AI and what we have here. And I just jumped into it and I spent a lot of time, a lot of my free time educating myself on AI. And I quickly learned, oh, it's not difficult. A lot of these tools are very easy to use. They're fun to use. Like they brought out a sense of creativity. I feel like I've even told my CLO that I feel like it's made me more excited about my job, if anything. Like, it really has given me a new set of tools. Like, before I just had, the standard I had my CLM and I have, whatever, and now I have, like, a whole new set of tools, and I'm just finding creative ways to use them, and sometimes I feel like I just wanna do AI all day, and I don't wanna do the other things. And so I have to you can go down I could just spend a lot of time playing around and messing around with AI, and it's just given me a lot of I don't know, it's just been really fun. It's been, like, the most exciting time I can remember technology-wise. For the attorneys, I would say they were definitely a bit, nervous about it, and they were like, "Oh, hallucinations," and things that they were concerned about. So what we've done is we created an AI Slack channel where we start the conversations. We share, things that are working, things aren't working, different articles and relevant information regarding AI. And then I host like a weekly AI jam session on Zoom where most every attorney shows up every week and they are very excited.
What's the
They
jam session like? What do you do there?
We had it this morning and today. Usually I come with if there's no just so I'm ready, I have some kind of like, update that Google has done or some kind of interesting piece of information that I'll share with the group. And then we'll usually just go around and the attorneys will share how they've used AI in the past week. And today we talked about Google Vids a lot. We're creating new trainings. We are moving away from spending an hour on Zoom calls sharing slides and training people for an hour. And we're realizing that people like myself are like watching TikToks and short videos, and that's how we're learning. So the attorneys have really been encouraged to create videos that are a couple minutes long and make them like a series of videos, very bite sized. So today we talked about avatar feature in vids where you can create a script and then the AI avatar will say whatever you put into the script. So there's constantly updates. And so that's what we shared today. It's just creating video training.
So are these sort of creative, fun use cases really stimulating, their ability to use it for other things? Is that you're finding a good path in for everyone?
Yeah, we did talk about how there is a bit of a learning curve with vids right now where you have to figure out how to edit videos. So it is very easy to just 3 hours can just go by like very quickly when we're playing around with these things. So we just talked about how when we share the best use cases and some tips, we can cut back on the amount of time we're spent learning these tools. But they're all excited because not, who does really like preparing an hour long slide deck and, going over that in a Zoom meeting. I think it'll cut back. We can put these videos on Confluence or our learning platform, and people can watch them as they need to. We don't have to keep repeating the live training. So I think overall, we'll recoup the amount of time that we're investing in upfront to create them.
So, Brooks, you mentioned, concern over hallucinations among, some of the attorneys as they're starting to use it. Is there a good understanding, do you think, for them of the difference between, let's say, asking a conversational experience whether any of your MSAs include, unlimited indemnification versus asking it, would these terms be enforceable?
Mhm.
Kinds of questions that are about your data versus the kinds of questions that are asking for a judgment call that you'd have to look out to the broader internet and try to intuit. Very different in terms of the kinds of accuracy that you can get back. Do you think that that line is understood fairly well?
Yeah, I think they understand that if they go into Evisort and they ask the question, that it's only trained on our contract, so it's not gonna come up with something crazy from the internet. Um, the same thing with, we're using Notebook LM, which we can put all of our internal documents in, and it reduces hallucinations. Unless you tell it, you can add websites to it. So they know that's a good place to limit hallucinations. We also know that we review everything, like they just can't ask questions, copy and paste and send it off. We all know that we need to at least give it a quick review and make sure that it's accurate. So their knowledge still comes in. That's the way that we've been able to handle the issue with hallucinations.
Hmm. And I mean, I know that you're leading these sessions internally at Human Interest, but aren't you also leading roundtables on AI within the L suite? Are those similar to these, or what are those conversations like?
Yeah, I noticed people were posting a lot in the else we just asking, a lot about AI redlining? And I was like, AI redlining is great, but I want to see what people are, doing with other AI tools. So about a month ago, I posted just asking people, if they wanted to get together on Zoom and share how they're actually using AI and which tools they're finding useful. Are they signing up for the legal specific chatbot tools, or are they, using ChatGPT Enterprise or Gemini? So had pretty good response, and about 50 people, responded. It was yeah, and then we had our first roundtable over Zoom. I think about 30 people from all kinds of companies showed up, and it was interesting because some people showed up who they said that their GCs told them not to use AI, or they're still in like the phase where they're very nervous about it and they don't trust it and they haven't been experimenting. And then there's people on the other spectrum like me who have just been kind of going crazy. So, but I always like to hear, is there anything that I'm missing? Is there anything I could be doing that I'm not doing? So just sharing with other legal operations professionals, and it's been great. So I have that, group, and then I also started like a Google Gemini subgroup for people who just use Gemini. So it's been awesome.
So, Brooks, what are the kinds of contracts that you have in your repository at Human Interest? Obviously, you have lots of financial documents, but is it the full range of contracts across your organization?
Most of our contracts are vendor agreements, so just us buying other SaaS tools, I would say, makes up the majority of what we have. NDAs, and that could be investor NDAs, potential vendors that we're going to use, potential customers. All of those are in Evisort, and then our key partnership agreements are in there, the ones that we find to be our top, 10 to 12 partnership agreements, and then any red lines to our partnership agreement template, we move those through Evisort, so there's a workflow to keep those in case we ever need to refer to contracts that, are not on or are not exactly our template that have been redlined. We keep those in there. Um, that's the main thing, like, our order forms and the rest of the partnership agreements are in Salesforce, but I do feel safe that if I ever needed to get them into Evisort, I could just stick them into Google Drive and upload them to Evisort and be easy, so I don't freak out that they're not all in there. Part of me would like them all in there, all wrangled in one location, but, that's they're currently not everything's in there right now.
And are there particular sort of customized terms that you're interested in now putting in place? I know you mentioned to us as we spoke before that you're just now getting around to customized AI and getting the ability to create your own models. Are there some particular terms like you have in mind that you're interested in starting to track on a rolling basis that aren't part of the standard deployment?
Yeah, that's one of my goals. I was actually working on my goals before this, and one of my goals is to leverage the custom AI. We just got it a week or two ago. I'm going to take the course in of a sort, learn as much as I can about it, and then yes, I plan on using it to pull out things that the AI, that's either people put into our intake form, but the AI does that gets transferred over to the repository, or things that the AI doesn't necessarily pick up on. So for us, the total contract value is important. And then any SLAs and any breach notifications. Those are the top three that I'm going to focus on in the next month or so, figuring out how to create those custom AI models. And then, I know Evisort will also generate dashboards. And these are things that currently we were having to just, the attorney would say, hey, this one has what breach notification. They would mention me in Evisort, and then I'd have to remember to just tag these certain things that are important to us um, when contract moves to the repository. So now I'm going to be able to automate all of that, and it's going to be more accurate than I can ever be. So we're excited to do that.
Yeah, no, I think when it comes to leveraging these kinds of new advanced AIs, I think as you're going through the training, you're going to see what's really cool is almost counterintuitively, the more advanced technology is, somehow like the easier it is kind of to use. And so instead of tagging and doing all those things, really just kind of talking in natural language and asking questions. I do want to just, because you've implemented and worked with so many kinds of technologies, that have run the gamut. And I'm just kind of curious, just from an overall perspective, just kind of war stories of kind of implementing technologies, be it in the contracting or the e-billing or even in the IP space, where maybe things didn't go according to plan, but maybe it could have within there some lessons for folks who are listening, dealing and going through these kinds of implementations.
Yeah, I have plenty of CLM war stories. Also, e-billing, and I would say keep it simple. Like when I first started here, we had a different CLM, and um, we had a bunch of workflows, and now we've actually just implemented Coupa, so that kind of made it so we had to simplify things even more, because now we're connecting the two systems of Assort and Coupa together. So I narrowed things down. I combined several workflows into one that works with Coupa. So it's just constantly simplifying. I know Evisort is simple because I don't get questions about it. People will ask for a license, I will give it to them, and they are able to figure out, how to submit a contract, how to get an NDA, how to generate our independent contractor templates in Evisort. So that has been amazing for me, because previously I would spend all day helping people figure out how to just upload their contract. And then when it came to sign it, they also got confused. So we'd have to go on Zoom, and I'd have to walk them through, like, push this button, now push that one. And now all of that burden has been taken off of me, that's why I am such a huge Evisort fan. Just the implementation, I'll mention too. We just celebrated our second year with Evisort. The implementation literally took a couple, like, not even, I wouldn't even say a couple weeks. Whereas I've just talked to someone the other day, and they said their implementation of a different systems on 3 years, and they finally cut the cord. No, ours was like 3 weeks. We started with just putting our contracts that we wanted in the system into Google Drive, connecting that to Evisort. It pulled them all in. It pulled in tons of metadata that we weren't able to get from other systems using AI, and they've always found it to be accurate. Previous systems I've used, I'd have to manually upload it. The AI was not great, so it would put in the wrong information, and I'd have to go back and change everything. But with Evisort, it just pulls it all in, it gets it right, and almost like magic. So that's what sold it, for me 2 years ago, and it's just yeah, I didn't it made me look good because people don't complain about it, and they actually said they like it, so it's been a great experience.
Wow, that's all so good to hear. What did you have to do to get the justification, to get the budget and all of that, to make this purchase in the first place? That's something we hear about a lot from people we interact with. How do I make the case? What's my return on investment going to be? What's my outlay going to be? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, back then, 2 years ago, I even remember people like when Evisort would focus a lot on AI and the demo, and the attorneys were just so nervous about that. Um, 2 years ago they were, but now we're all excited. But as far as we already had a CLM and it wasn't working, so our CLO saw that we just can't live without a CLM. We need it. We wanna be on top of our obligations. We wanna know our deadlines. We didn't have a procurement system at the time either, so Evisort was kind of our procurement system for 2 years, so we needed it for that too. So it handled quite a bit, and so it wasn't too difficult to convince our GC that we needed a CLM. I guess back then, it wasn't like a name brand like some of the other ones that the name, the attorneys are more familiar with. That was my biggest obstacle was, like, convincing everybody, like, "Hey, I think we should go with Evisort." Um, I just saw that it was a great system back then. So I think now that we've been acquired by Workday, I feel vindicated, validated that I was right. That has really helped, my case.
Do you feel like you're doing kind of more do you feel like you're almost in a nexus of legal ops and HR a little bit in your work more than past legal operations roles? And what does that look like? I mean, because if you think of this acquisition as an indicator of market trends, that might be something that folks see more of.
Yeah, our CLO even said he's like, it makes sense to him that there would be some overlap. I have helped the HR team, with some of their tech RFPs, like, we looked at and implemented systems for, like, tracking leave of absences, and then recently I helped the recruiting team look at AI tools, so that was really fun for me, just seeing that there's tools that can join interviews and they can, transcribe the interview, create the scorecards, get them into Greenhouse, and do all these things that was something that they were struggling with, getting people to complete all these scorecards, and that these tools can also help identify when people are using AI in their interviews. There's situations where people are hiring fake fake people that are actually AI, which I had no idea that was happening. So,
I didn't know that was happening.
yeah. Yeah, they could join it. They're not even a real person. So that happens.
Speaking of that, this is a funny transition because we're not talking about hiring what you think are people and turn out to be AI. But when you put in place, looking forward, AI agents that are increasingly over time now more capable, can be a little more autonomous, can be more creative in their solutions, can reach across different data sets and answer some things in a little more complex way that historically could not be done. How do you see that having an impact on the legal workforce? In your in-house environment, what do you think is going to be the impact of that?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because that is like a topic that I am moving towards focusing all my energy on is just understanding how AI agents work, how to build them out. I'm excited because so far it seems like it's something that I'll be able to handle myself. I'll be able to create the agents and manage them. So I am currently looking at tools for that. And I'm already coming up with a list of manual processes and things that I don't like doing that maybe an AI agent. I'm legal operations of one. So to me, I think of it as like the someone that I could like hire. Like I can't hire anyone. So I'm looking to like an AI agent to help me do my job. So I'm starting to compile a list of different processes. And I would love for the agent to be able to go into Coupa and Evisort and all these different systems and answer questions that people usually would come to me for. I wish it could also learn how to do DocuSigns. That would be awesome. It's one of my least favorite things to do, send out DocuSigns. So, yeah, that is something that's been like the top of my mind. And the next place I'm going to focus on is AI agents. Cause as you said, it is where we're headed and it's the next big thing.
I love the way you led into that with like my first thing is to figure out what are all the things I don't want to do I can offload to an agent. I think that's just a great place to begin. There's so much thought of this idea of like AI agents are going to come in and do all the big thinking for us. It's like, well, no. Really what's happening at this stage is AI agents are there to just take more steps away from you that you don't particularly want to do, and be able to connect the dots better than they've been able to before. I think this is where that agentic aspect comes in. What's your thought about how legal though, and as again as it happens, your CLO is your CPO, HR as well. How are they looking at being at the nexus of potential AI agent adoption across the business and having to look at that from a governance standpoint?
Yeah, that one, there's already a couple of places I have in mind where the legal team and the HR team overlap, which is independent contractors. Was asked to revamp a process that is very complicated when we bring on an independent contractor. So that's one where I plan on using the agent first. And then as far as governance, this one's kind of both more difficult for me to answer.
I don't know that anyone has the answer
Yeah.
yet.
Okay.
I'm just curious as to whether it's being talked about. It's because this is obviously a big area of focus for Workday as we try to provide the tools to manage the workforce. We are looking, also at a whole range of solutions for how do you manage the AI agents with the proper governance and oversight and all the things you would have for your human workforce so that you can do the two side by side. But I'm just curious to what degree, any of our customers out there are wrestling with that right now or looking ahead to it.
Yeah, that I don't have a whole lot to add because I'm just starting my research into AI agents. I'm doing demos this week actually, with a legal specific one. And then we did look at Google's agent space and trying to figure out, it sounds like for that one, we'd need a developer to create the agents for you. But I think the way I see it would be like someone like me would be in charge of building the agents and giving the agents access to certain things. So there would be human oversight. You're just not going to let them run wild. And then um, if somebody doesn't have access to Evasort, but they're trying to ask the agent for something that's in Evasort, they get, rejected. So we would not let them just go into any system. We would still maintain access levels to keep information confidential as needed.
Yeah, these are absolutely the kind of things that people are wrestling with now. It's like, how do I connect the different data sources that we're going to need access to, but also be very careful about, any inappropriate access. An important area for us as we've implemented Ask AI within Evisort is just to make sure that there's no workaround of any kind for someone to use Ask AI to bypass their access controls around contract data because you don't want someone asking, so tell me about the CEO's stock options, obviously Ask AI is not going to give an answer to that. You don't have access to any of that data. You will not get it. Chief People Officer, another matter, so making sure that all those kind of controls are in place is really central to all of this.
Yeah, and we just also got access to Evisort's advanced admin features, what we didn't have before. So that is another thing that's on my goals is to, create custom access where I can give our leadership access to whatever they want, and then kind of right now it's not as locked down as I would like for other departments. So that is one of my goals is to just closer look at the access levels and create customized access that fit our company.
I mean, you've worked in so many different industries in healthcare, you're in fintech now, you've worked with IP, compliance, legal, even HR. And I mean, it seems like you are knees deep when it comes to learning day to day about the advancements in artificial intelligence. I'd love to take a step back. We've got some VCs who listen to this podcast too. If you could just take a step back and just from what you've seen of all the kinds of opportunities to do things more efficiently in legal compliance and IP, which I'm sure there's many. If you had the magic wand to build a little tool to do something, it's AI based. What would you build? What opportunities do you see that maybe haven't been addressed yet by the market?
Something that I would love, I think just something that you could throw a bunch of data into it. And I know Evisort can create dashboards, but other types of data that aren't contracts, where I could just, like we don't have a legal e-billing system. We're using Coupa. It's not the easiest system for me to use, but just being able to pull out all of our invoices and just put them into AI, and it could tell me, where we spent all the metrics I need, especially when the budgets are coming up. That would be one. And then one that maybe from the IP world, there are some AI companies out there doing some pretty cool things where the AI can listen in on meetings and it can hear if, something that's discussed in a meeting is patentable. I thought that was pretty cool. It's endless, the amount of possibilities. So that's why I decided just to embrace it and go along for the ride.
You've told us before that when you got into legal ops, and it sounds like still very much today, you just like read everything you could get your hands on. You got very engaged in like all the information that was out there. So, what have you picked up from that? I mean, you've now stepped into this area like right on about 3 years ago. Is like right when the heat just got turned way up because generative AI came on the scene, and suddenly, now there's a whole new range of creative things that started popping up in this space. So like how do you keep up with this? How do you look ahead? How do you have a sense of what's going to come next?
One of my favorite resources is the Everyday AI podcast. It's, by someone that was an investigative journalist, not an AI expert at all, just a normal guy who's learning AI. And I get to learn about, usually listen to it when I'm walking my dogs before work. And he always has the latest AI news, like, Meta is paying $200 million for an AI researcher to like what, ChatGPT is doing, what new releases. So that's one way. That's how I just stay informed about AI in general. And then when it comes to my job, I'm just focused on what Google is doing. Notebook LM is an amazing resource. Um, we're looking at our marketing review processes, and it's not a process that I'm involved in very often. So I needed to understand how it's currently working. So I took all of our policies and our trackers and anything I could find related to marketing review, put it into Notebook LM, and then Notebook LM will create a podcast from that information. And then you can actually interact with a podcast host. You can ask them questions like as if you're in a live podcast, they'll answer your questions. So that's been, and I can do that in my backyard. I can listen to the podcast, outside or wherever. That's been a huge way for me to learn quickly because I don't have a lot of time to sit there and read. So, and that's not how I learn the best. I learn by listening much easier. So that's another great tool.
I think you're telling us there are other podcasts besides ours on AI. So okay, duly noted. We'll look into that. Um, but no, there's so much information out there. I find it hard to digest it all and just stay plugged in. And it sounds like you're doing a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, I love TikTok too. I love both 1 or 2 minute clips on YouTube, just constantly feeding my brain tidbits of AI information and eventually have a pretty good understanding of it now.
To close out, we oftentimes have guests fill in the blank. And I guess for you, I would love to have you fill in this blank, which is implementing generative AI in legal is blank.
Exhilarating.
Love that. That's incredible. And that's something that I think even Notebook LM AI powered podcast isn't gonna, get content that is as good as this. And so
Mimi and I are real people, by the way. Can I just say that right now? I just want to, anyone that's doubting, we are, yeah, okay.
even though Hal is the name of a robot that's famous and my name looks like it's a meme, right? But we are still real people.
Yeah, I've led many a presentation with, my name is Hal. I'm here to tell you not to be afraid of AI. How am I doing so far?
Awesome. Well, Brooks, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Meeting of the Minds, the Legal AI podcast, is brought to you by Oversight. To learn more about Oversight and how we can help you contract better with AI, visit Oversight, EVISORT.com.
You can find Meeting of the Minds on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to click subscribe so you won't miss future episodes.
On behalf of everyone here at Oversight, thanks for tuning in.